by Sir Leonard Woolley. And Digging Up the Past, of the Chaldees. I don't have that one, I don't think. This is a 1946 book. Acknowledgements and all that. The First Phases. Nearly all the plates in this book illustrate treasures found in the royal tombs of but when faced with a strange and ancient civilization which could produce works of art so rich and technically so perfect, we naturally ask how it arose. And so the text deals mainly with the history of before the time of the royal tombs. That really means the early history of the land of Sumer, or southern Mesopotamia, and if, in what follows, little but is mentioned, it must not be forgotten that our historical knowledge is derived from many sources and from the labors of many archaeologists on many sites. No one site has produced a consecutive record illustrated equally well in all its phases. There are always gaps which must be filled in from results obtained elsewhere. By piecing those results together, we can set in order the stages by which the Sumerian civilization advanced from its crude beginning in the late Stone Age to the fine flower of the destinies which ruled over an urbanized and urbane realm. We are dealing with prehistoric times, therefore we cannot ask for dated history. You must be content with successive periods whose individual character is clearly marked, but at whose length and time remains quite unknown. Here we are concerned with 5 such stages, each of which is named by archaeologists after the place where the first evidence of it was discovered. The earliest is the Al-Ubaid period. Al-Ubaid was a small settlement 4 miles north of where the first noted painted pottery, which characterizes all the very early sites of Sumer. Next comes the Uruk period, first made known by the excavations at Warka, 40 miles north of the site of the ancient city, which in the Bible is called Erech. In the Babylonian text, Uruk. The third stage is the Jamdet Nasr period, named after a little mound east of Hilla, which is Babylon, where a new type of pottery was found associated with the clay tablets written in an archaic script. To Jamdet Nasr succeeds the early dynastic period. Now for the first time, a skeleton of history is furnished by the king list, drawn up by the Sumerian scribes about 2000 BCE. They give the names of the rulers of various dynasties, which, in turn, claimed suzerainty over the land of Sumer. To this period belong the royal tombs of and also the first dynasty of whose historical existence was vouched for by the discovery in the temple at Al-Ubaid of a foundation stone bearing the names of its 2 kings. The early dynastic period ends with the rise to power at Sargon, the great king of Akkad, or northern Mesopotamia. He can be dated approximately to 2560 BCE. From his time onward, we deal not with stages of history, but with a chronology reckoned in years. For the early history, 2 factors are of prime importance: the land and the people. Man must adapt himself to his surroundings, even while he masters them, and if we lose sight in the background against which man plays his part, we lose most of the essence of the drama. Therefore, the nature of the country must be taken into account. It is commonplace to say that civilization can develop only where the soil is such that people can make their livelihood so easily as to enjoy a modicum of leisure, where the climate is not too hot or too cold, to make work possible and all the year round, where there is room for expansion. so that the population can be numerous enough to ensure its protection against attack, where communication is possible with the outside world so as to facilitate the exchange of goods and of ideas, and where raw materials are accessible for manufacture. How far does the southern Mesopotamia answer to these conditions? To anyone who today visits southern Iraq, it must seem strange that this unpromising land should have been the birthplace for the seat of a great civilization. Not far north of Basra, the marshes with their shallow brackish waters and tangled reed beds fill all the space between the eastern and western deserts. Above them stretches a vast expanse of flat country through which flows the river Euphrates. A scanty belt of palm trees fringes its high embankment. Tilled fields may extend for a mile or two from the stream or may dwindle to nothing. Only when the irrigation canals bring water from the river can anything grow, and there is no strip of herbage to divide the desert from the sown. The green of the cornland ends abruptly on a clean-cut line, and beyond it, as far as we can see, lies a flat, dead world of yellow sand or salt-spangled gray mud whose monotony is relieved only by the low mounds that shroud desert cities, and the people, housed in low tunnel-like cabins of reed matting, are in the yet more squalid mud huts of the villages strung out along the riverbank. The Arabs who wrest their livelihood from the soil, working it with wooden plows drawn by camel or donkey. Guiding the blinkered ox on his endless round above the wheel that raises water for the fields, clearing the ditches of their salted mud with their broad-bladed hoe, and trampling out the grain on the mud threshing floor and tossing it with the winnowing fan against the wind, they may seem to give no more hope of progress than does the land itself, and yet the desert once was green. The sand-shrouded cities were once populous. Here civilization flourished, and in the shelter of a rich and ordered life, the arts and crafts were brought into a premature perfection.